Hello students, what is the difference between these two sentences? He is kind and he has a golden heart. While first sentence simply states that a person is kind, second sentence not just emphasizes on the quality of kindness but also beautifies the sentence. This is the beauty of figure of speech. In this video, we will learn about figures of speech. Although there are hundreds of figures of speech, in this video we will discuss 10 figures of speech, and then in successive videos we will discuss more figures of speech. Before we discuss figure of speech, let us understand the difference between literal meaning and figurative meaning. Let's understand with this sentence. This is not my cup of tea. If I say this is not my cup of tea, its literal meaning will be there is a cup of tea which is not mine. That means I am not drinking tea in that cup. While in figurative language, it will mean that this task is not possible for me. I cannot do this task. Hence, in literal language, the words mean what they really say. It's the exact meaning of the words and there is no hidden or otherwise meaning. If I say this is not my cup of tea, that means that cup of tea which is kept there is not mine. That's literal language. Whereas in figurative language, you need to interpret the meaning. The words doesn't exactly mean what they look like. The writer means to imply something else by using figure of speech or figurative language. To define figure of speech, writers and poets use figure of speech to beautify the language, emphasize on the idea or concept, arouse interest, and awaken our imagination and make it persuasive, vivid, and relatable. Persuasive means convincing, vivid means clear. It is also used by poets to produce special effects in a poem such as rhyme, mood, feeling, etc. Figure of speech are also called literary devices or poetic devices. Let's start with very commonly used figures of speech. Simile and metaphor, both are used for comparison. Simile is used to compare two dissimilar things yet alike or similar in a significant way. Two dissimilar things which may be similar in certain way. This comparison is made using as or like. For example, life is like riding a bicycle. To keep your balance, you must keep moving. Here life is compared to riding bicycle using like. Another example, the street lamp stands like a giant with one red eye on its head. I slept like a baby. Of course, grown-ups can't sleep like a baby, but if somebody has slept very smoothly, very deeply, he can say that I slept like a baby. He is as brave as a lion. Metaphor. Metaphor is used to compare two dissimilar things without using as or like. You can say that metaphor is like simile, but in simile we use as or like, but in metaphor we don't use as or like. It almost asserts that the two things are identical in comparison rather than similar. So the similarity between two things is so much when compared that they almost look identical, not even similar, as if the two things are identical. For example, some crickets have 4 legs, some have 2. Cricket animal is being talked about. Here cricket is compared to human. Human are 2-legged animals and cricket 4-legged animals. So because of quality, cricket are compared or human are compared to cricket. Words are food and dress of thoughts. She has silky hair. Hair cannot be silky, cannot be like silk, but her hair is so smooth that the author has compared it to silk. My mother is my God. Here mother is compared to God, or mother is given the position of God. Next figure of speech is personification. Personification is a figure of speech in which human quality is attributed to an idea or thing or even animals. Human quality is given to inmate, that means non-living thing, an idea, or maybe animals. For example, the alarm clock yells at me to get out of bed in the morning. Alarm clock cannot yell, but it rings, which is compared to yelling like human. The starlit night embraced me. The starlit night hugged me like a human. The coins in my pocket were getting restless. So this was personification of non-living things. Next, we will read about repetition of sounds in alliteration, consonance, and assonance. Let's understand alliteration and consonance first. Alliteration is repetition of consonant sounds in the beginning of multiple words, sentences, or phrases. Words in sentences or phrases. So when consonant sound is repeated in the beginning of any sentence, there is alliteration. I slipped slyly into the slow, slippery sled. Here S sound is repeated. When the weather was warm, W. Alliteration can also be seen in the names of some brands like Dunkin' Donut, Coca-Cola. Here one thing to keep in mind is that sound is being talked about. Sound of the word is being talked about. The letter is being talked about, not the letter itself. Consonance is similar to alliteration except the fact that repetition of consonant sound can occur anywhere in the phrase. It is not necessary that the consonant sound should repeat in the beginning of the word. It can be anywhere in the phrase. It can be in the middle or end. In fact, we can say that alliteration is a form of consonance that occurs at the beginning of a word. For example, Fred wondered why the road wound to a jagged end. So here D sound is repeated at the end of each word. It will creep and beep while you sleep is next example. Assonance is the repetition of vowel sound, while in alliteration and consonance, consonant sound is repeated. In alliteration, vowel sound is repeated in words, phrase or sentence, and it can be in the beginning or middle or end. It can be anywhere in the sentence. Rock around the clock, O sound is repeated. I must confess that in my quest I felt depressed and restless. Here E sound is repeated. In fact, in the previous example, it will creep and beep while you sleep. There is assonance as well because E sound is also repeated. Talking about repetition, our next figures of speech are repetition and anaphora, repeated words or lines. Repetition is a literary device that involves intentionally repeating a word or phrase 2 or more times for a greater impact. The words or phrases are usually in proximity or close to each other. So in repetition, words or phrases are repeated. For example, water, water everywhere, not a drop to drink. Crumbling wood, crumbling bodies, crumbling lives, crumbling hearts. Here in first sentence, water is repeated, and in second, crumbling is repeated for greater impact. There can be repetition of phrase also. For example, miles to go before I sleep, miles to go before I sleep. In anaphora, a word or phrase is repeated in the beginning of successive sentences. While in repetition, word or phrase can be repeated anywhere in the sentence, in anaphora, it is repeated in the beginning of sentence, phrase or clause. Anaphora works as a literary device to allow writers to convey, emphasize, and reinforce in the meaning. For example, and sorry I could not travel both, and be one traveler, long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could. Here, and is repeated in the beginning of each line. We came, we saw, we conquered is another example. Next, we have hyperbole, which is exaggeration. Hyperbole is an intentional exaggeration or overstatement. The purpose is to make a point or emphasize on the idea. Exaggeration means overstatement, something which is beyond reality, but the poet or the writer use it to emphasize on his idea or point. In Hindi, we can say it bada chadakar bolna. For example, if I am to stay without my phone for a day, I will die. Of course, nobody dies without phone, but to emphasize the necessity of phone in his life, the writer here is exaggerating the things by saying that I will die without my phone. Oh my God, I have a mountain of clothes to arrange in the almirah. There cannot be mountain of clothes, but to emphasize on the extent of work, the writer is saying he has mountain of clothes to arrange. Next, it seems the whole population of the city is in the mall today. I died laughing. These were some examples of hyperbole. Woof woof, eek, splash, screech, honk, neigh, crack, oink, whack. Why am I making these sounds? Because this is our next figure of speech, onomatopoeia, which is imitation of sounds. Onomatopoeia is a literary device in which the natural sounds of a thing is imitated. It creates a sound effect that mimics the thing described, making the description more expressive and interesting, which simply means that the exact sound made by the thing or animal or any character for that matter is repeated. Is it hands clapping? Is it the thump of your heart in your chest? Quack quack went the duck. Or any other sound, patter of rain, meow. All these are onomatopoeias. So students, we have read 10 figure of speeches in this video. I hope it will be useful to you, and in the successive videos we will read more figure of speech. If there is any specific figure of speech that you want me to explain, please let me know in the comment section. Till then, bye bye, take care.